The high school basketball season is in the home stretch, and we had a big-time matchup between two of the top players in 2024 last week, with Carolina commit Ian Jackson knocking off Carolina target Boogie Fland. How does that factor into Carolina's recruitment? We'll find out.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea. Joining me today is our guy, Jason Jordan, college basketball recruiting insider for Locked On. Speaking of, every time we have our brother Jason on, it is brought to us by LinkedIn Jobs, and we'd like to thank them for being the official college basketball recruiting sponsor across the Locked On network. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Folks, thanks so much for joining Jason and I today as we talk college basketball recruiting. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about UNC target Jarin Stevenson, who was at the NC State game on Sunday, as well as what we're looking for as the high school basketball season wraps up from some of Carolina's commits or targets. But before we get into that, we want to talk about this big New York matchup between Ian Jackson and Boogie Fland, two of the top players in the class of 2024. So a week ago today, Valentine's Day, love is in the air, but these two dudes are squaring off. Ian Jackson's Cardinal Hayes team against Boogie Fland's Archbishop Stepinac team. That school just keeps coming up in the Carolina vernacular these days. Cardinal Hayes wins 74-68. Both these dudes live up to the moment. 35 points for Ian Jackson in the win and 27 for Boogie Fland in the losing effort. Jason, when you see these big time matchups where even just in kind of regular high school play, we get top guys going against each other. What do you like to see? What are you looking for in those matchups?
Well, I like for stars to be stars, is to put it very bluntly. There are so many times where I go to games where a coach will be like, "Oh, you got to see him. You got to see him." I'm telling you, he's the guy. He's the guy, right? And maybe I haven't seen it, or maybe he comes with a reputation. I know, he's been the guy. A lot of times you go into a game, and honestly, this happens a lot, unfortunately, where I'm like, "All right, cool. It's the first time getting a chance to see him. All right, let me sit down. I'm ready. Let's see." And the guy acts too cool to score. Like he's like, I'm just pass. I'm just so good. I'm just gonna pass. He's not motivated. He's not a go-getter. He's gonna be too cool to score till the second quarter. But the reality is he can't score. That's what I noticed. Like it's like, I noticed you didn't get around that little short quick guard that time. I saw you try that move. And I'm always looking for guys to be the guy they say they are. They have the reputation to be. And obviously this game lived up to the billing. Those guys always Boogie's always gonna give you wild plays, whether he's scoring or just dribbling or getting to the cup. He's just so quick. And then Ian, obviously, we've talked about this multiple times before, but he's a pro and he's going to show up and be a pro most times. So I knew that would be a dynamic matchup. 35-27, that's different. That's different. That left the fans with definitely looking like they were probably looking to pay more after the game.
Yes, thank you. Of letting us be in this gym tonight. Both guys definitely delivering. If you haven't seen, I believe the highlights are on YouTube. I think I saw them at some point last week, so you can go find these. Now, as for the North Carolina recruiting side of it, obviously Ian Jackson is already in the fold for the class of 2024. We've had conversations, Jason, that it seems like Carolina is kind of out on Boogie Fland right now because the attention in 24 is more on a power forward role. But that said, with still some of the possibilities that you and I have talked about quite a bit about reclassifications and other things like that. I mean, obviously Boogie Fland isn't completely off the table. And so when you think about a North Carolina commit going up against a North Carolina target, who, by the way, plays for a school in Archbishop Stepinac, who has a player currently on Carolina's roster, what can happen surrounding a matchup like this to kind of maybe help sway Boogie Fland in some positive directions for Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, conversations, they probably had fun. I mean, they're friends, right? They play with USA basketball together. So they're know each other very well, friends, talk all the time, I'm sure. I mean, they both play in the same Catholic league. And so, there's probably some friendly wagers or just a little fun trash talk heading into that game. And so definitely following up with a lot of the same, more so on inside. And so, you could imagine that after the game, they're like, hey, man, look what we do apart. Look what we could do together. I'd imagine Ian hits him with that one. These are all things that I've heard, multiple times over. And so, it does give. And I've heard recruits say, I mean, goodness, and look what we do. We're duking it out. If we ever were to team up, we obviously have a chemistry. We played together on in the summer and different teams like that. So it just builds a relationship. It doesn't move the needle one way or the other. I think they're friends anyway. They played together anyway, and they know what each other can do. Boogie throws and lobs to Ian overseas for for gold medals. So, they're very aware of what they're capable of. And I think they know that their chemistry could be scary. So I don't think the selling point, it would just reinforce that selling point, and it would make Ian's, his selling points even more profound, I guess, more powerful.
Because as we've talked about too, once you get a kid committed, you want to turn around and turn him into a recruiter. And so obviously Ian Jackson's continuing to do that. And kind of to that point, on the Carolina side of things, even though it seems like probably Boogie Fland's not necessarily in the cards given other commits and what you got essentially, et cetera. Right. How do you keep the candle burning a little bit? How do you keep that line of communication open so that if the opportunity presents itself, you haven't lost your contact or your foothold in his camp?
Yeah, you stay in touch. And again, we talked about Hubert as a recruiter. I mean, he knows that. He knows that there's a possibility that Elliot Cadeau, who's in the same class with Boogie Fland, both point guards, both dynamic point guards, 5-star point guards. He knows that there's a possibility that Elliot could come next year, right? So if that's the case, the whole world opens up for 24. Boogie's back on, on the must-have list, and you don't want to just. Now, I'll say this: coaches do that though. Like, they do drop the ball.
Really,
I haven't seen Hubert Davis do that yet, but some of your favorite coaches have dropped the ball before. So they're like, "Oh, we're good, cool. Depart from me, I never knew you. Like, lose my number." Like, oh, it just went dark, and then things don't happen the way they, or they don't get the kid they think they're going to get. And then they try and come back. But then you've left a bad taste in mom's mouth and the recruit's mouth. Certainly I start with mom because that's what matters.
Right.
So, I definitely, that is not uncommon for coaches to drop the ball.
Interesting.
Because coaches, they're just people, right? So they don't know how to, you'd be surprised at how many of these coaches are not. We think we've talked about this before. Like, you want a coach that's a people person. And so they don't know how to deal with relationships and nurture relationships and things like that. You'd be surprised at how many coaches don't. Yeah.
And in this era of the transfer portal too, all the more so, like, if for some reason, let's say Boogie Fland turns out to be a 2-year player in Carolina or in the NCAA and decides he wants to transfer. Well, if you've burned that bridge in the recruiting game when he's a high schooler, man, it's just a different ballgame now where you have to, you just don't know what's going to happen on down the road. It's a wild.
I can tell you unequivocally, I had this conversation last night from I'm gonna watch my words, a highly ranked player who, was talking, I'd say it like this. He was talking about other schools, maybe, and running down the list of other schools that he may be interested in next year. And
as a potential
transfer, one came up and he said what you just said. Yeah, when I and this was when he wasn't even committed to the school that he was going to, but the coach just stopped talking to him. He was just like, yeah, I don't know, I'm really unsure. It was like it wasn't one of those, I'm going to this school, thanks for recruiting me. It was, I'm just so unsure, coach. I appreciate your patience. I did just get back from this XYZ visit. I'm just really unsure. I'm confused right now. Coach goes dark on him. Like his feelings are hurt. So now they want him. They're totally, everybody's going to this kid. They're going to want him. And that was like, oh, would you go there? Absolutely not. He was still tight about it.
Because of what happened years ago in high school recruiting.
Yeah, you dropped the ball. Yeah, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, that's great insight, Jason. Thank you so much. So, Ian Jackson, Boogie Fland, two dynamic talents. Would obviously love to have Boogie Fland in Carolina blue as well, but we will just have to see how things continue to unfold. Speaking of Carolina recruiting targets, North Carolina dropped their 5th out of their last 6 games on Sunday at NC State, and recruiting target Jarin Stevenson was there to take it all in. Does this hurt Carolina's chances? We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Hey, you looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories? Well, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays a couple months ago, and I know my goal this year is to eat a little healthier, a goal that I'm failing miserably at, by the way. I'm about to go eat a fat Chick-fil-A sandwich in just a second. And if you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise the taste, then I've got the thing for you, and that's Built Bar, when healthy is actually tasty. What makes them so good? Well, for starters, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate and phenomenal flavors like churro and peanut butter brownie. Not sure how Built does it, but they make them taste so good while maintaining awesome macros. Just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and yet 17 grams of protein. Plus, you don't need to wait around now to get it to come in an order from Built.com. You can just go on down to Walmart or Sam's Club, get yourself a tight little 4-count box. Or, man, if you got a big old family, why not go on to Sam's Club and get that bulk order? You won't be disappointed, I promise you, with Built, a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Okay, so, Jason, North Carolina, dire straits this season. It's literally... This is it. Carolina has 4 games left at this point. They need to win them all. And even then, you're hoping you're in good shape. Obviously, that would include wins over Virginia and Duke if you do it. But whatever. All of that to say, on Sunday, this game at NC State, a game Carolina really needed to get a quad 1 win. NC State had several recruits there at the game. Obviously, understandably, it's going to be an insane environment, and it was. One of those who was there is Jarin Stevenson, who is someone Carolina has been not only heavily recruiting, but has gone all in on, as you and I have talked about earlier. Now, obviously, recruits are going to take other visits, do other things, but Stevenson being at this specific game, obviously that has to have some level of strategy to it for Kevin Keats and staff. What kind of effect does a game and an outcome like this have on recruiting?
So I used to say, it doesn't have any effect. Those kids are egomaniacs, not Jarin, but just by and large, these kids are egomaniacs. They're like, oh, what's it going to look like when I get there? And that's not true, right? They are, and they do look at it like that. But I'll say it's different when it's North Carolina we're talking about. NC State fans cover your ears. The reality is,
listen, they're not here. They aren't here.
Yeah.
Unless they're hate watching or hate listening.
The reality is, it's not fair when you're talking about 6 programs, and North Carolina is one of them. So, Jarin, yeah, that's impressive, but he's looking at, what's going to be there when I'm there. Now, that looks good for NC State, right? Because they got Trey Parker and Dennis Parker. That's a good class. No, but Jarin's 24.
He's 24, yeah. But yeah, so NC State got their first 24 commit on Sunday after the game, and that's Paul McNeil, who I believe was also there. And so, that's another question: is what sort of factor does that camaraderie have? Yeah.
So okay, right. I'm getting my classes together. Okay, so
listen,
Paul McNeil is huge. That's huge because Paul McNeil is probably, on par to be a McDonald's All-American, right? If things hold up. I mean, we got time, but
Sure.
So the reality is that is a big win. The reality is coming to the season, Kevin Keats was, I don't think anybody would disagree. Kevin Keats on the hot seat, right?
Very much so.
I wouldn't even say warm, hot. And he's certainly, extended his time at NC State. It looks to be the case. So him getting ill, Paul McNeil having the same thing that Ian Jackson, those conversations were had at the game, be clear, and they'll be had, because I'm sure he already knew, they'll be had this week following, and it's like, yeah, I mean, look, the tide is turning. This is the sale, right? This is what I've seen this, but whether it's true or not, this is what the tide is. It's a new day. I mean, it used to be Carolina, but it's State now. It's, and these kids, you would be like, oh, come on, man, everybody knows that's not true, right? Nah, everybody don't know that. They don't. It's like, look, we dog walk Duke out the court. We smacked Carolina. You didn't smack Carolina, but you beat them yesterday. They're clearly on the downside. I mean, what team goes to the title one year and potentially doesn't make the tournament the next year? The tide is turning, right? It's trouble. Jump ship while you can. You'll see the mass exodus is going to happen in April. Everybody's leaving. You'll see. You don't want to be a part of that, right? This is what I'm telling you. And maybe I'm doing it a little dramatic, but this is what the sale is going to be. It's already started.
Oh yeah.
So this is certainly going to be the sale in that recruitment, right? And we got Paul. I mean, man, think about a class with you and Paul, and they're not wrong. That class would be great.
That would be something, yeah.
But Carolina's like, yeah, we got all that. But look at our class. Look at our 24 class. We're still number one. So you can come and be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. You'll get us back. We'll get back on track, but then you really get us back on track. You'll be able to continue the legacy. So it does make an impact, all things considered. But I don't know that. I'm not going to say it doesn't move the needle, right? But the question is, can he and his parents not be a prisoner of the moment and see the big picture, right? And you usually find that out around Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. Hubert will have those follow-ups. I mean, they pin the deep conversations for like 3 or 4 days after, stuff like they're prepared for all of this. I'm telling you, it's very tedious. I know coaches that talk about this very thing. Oh, if we lose the game, the kids over there, I mean, we probably wait like 3 days, let that die down, come back and really have an in-depth talks. I'm sure an amazing recruiter like Hubert Davis and his staff, they're definitely going to have a deep conversation with Jarin around Wednesday.
And from everything you've said about Jarin, about his parents and family, they're not going to be prisoners of the moment. They're going they're going to see not only the bigger picture, but the historic picture, it's on both sides of that. Like, sure, NC State's having a great year. They're ranked. Jarkel Joyner, amazing. Terquavion, gonna be a lottery pick, whatever. Like, what are they going to be next year? What are they going to be in 24 when you would come? And so all of those conversations, seems like there's not really much reason to be too concerned about if Jarin Stevenson was already out, there wouldn't have been anything that was changed. But if he was already in, it's not that this is a back-breaking negative moment. Absolutely.
I completely agree.
Okay. There you go. From Jason's mouth to God's ears. You heard it. Folks, we are, as we said earlier, coming down the home stretch of the high school season, and Carolina's got lots of guys out there still in action. We want to talk about what is some of the things we're looking for as we come down the home stretch. We'll do that in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve those goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract and identify the most qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools, and then helps you connect with them fast and for free. They also make it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all right there together in one platform. You want to achieve your business goals in 2023, and the right new team member might be just the one to help you do that. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. So once again, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedon. Once again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, Jason, we are in the final couple weeks here of the college basketball season with March Madness less than a month away now. In fact, like less than 3 months away, or 3 weeks away, as we get into this week. But high school basketball is also into that portion of the season where we're wrapping up the regular season, moving into all the various playoff things that are happening. You as a recruiting insider, we talk about like, hey, when you go to a gym to watch, you're watching some of the things that guys doing, and so not even necessarily speaking about specific Carolina commits. Like, I want to see Elliot Cadeau do this. I want to see Drake Powell do this. What are just some of the general things that you expect out of high level elite talent when it comes to winning time at this portion of the season?
Yeah, well, first I look to see if they're still playing, right? So if you ain't even in the playoffs, that tells me right there that you're not able to carry a team. True story. That I really do look at that, because you'd be surprised. Some guys average 30, but they're home 30 days earlier when the playoffs come. So you look at that. Then I look at kids that are like not looking forward to April. Like, so if you watch, and coaches do this too, they watch those tweets. So they're like, kids will say, you'll just notice it. You'll notice it more than I'm telling you. They can't wait till session 1, April. It's March. Mm-hmm. So that means you don't care about so you're looking ahead. So you're the kind of player that looks ahead. You're and so a lot of times they're still playing the tournament. They maybe they're in the regionals or something like that. Like, oh man, or they'll post an old highlight video of the EYBL, or maybe the EYBL stops, official dates for the stops will come out, and they'll be like, can't wait. Spring's gonna be lit. Something like that. It's like, maybe focus on your high school season. So I look for that. And a player who obviously is dedicated to winning. Like, I mean, that speaks to mentality. It speaks to coachability. I'm sure coaches look for that, but I look for the mentality part of it, because it tells me all I need to know about how dedicated you are to winning and how focused you are on that main goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and that brings up a great question too, because obviously the talent level, the competition is going to be higher in the AAU season once we start to get to April and everything that comes in the summer. And not always, some of these guys are playing at high level elite high schools against, national competition all the time. But for the guys that are just playing on Joe Schmo high school teams, what does it say positively for them if they stay focused on that, or negatively against them if they are the guys that are the look ahead? What does that teach you about a young man's character or his ability to be focused in on the task at hand?
Well, it shows me that they're immature. If they, it's hard to, there's no way around it. So there's the immaturity there. So that's something a coach would throw in their back pocket, depending on who the player is. That's something they would bring up. It depends. Like, so some coaches are like, they're not gonna rock the boat too much, depending on where you're at with the kid. But then a lot of kids are like, I love how he tells me nothing but what I can work on, and sometimes that's just like a cliche thing to show that I'm focused. But you can tell in the tone
Yep.
which players mean that. So that would be for me, that's a kind of little bit of a red flag if they're not showing that degree of focus. Because the reality is, people don't talk about this. Most of these kids don't live up to the hype, right? So you can start to pick away who has the better chance. You can play the percentages and say, okay, he lacks focus here. Yeah, he's a little immature there. He does this, he does that. He's not a worker, But then those are things where you will follow with the high school coach and ask like leading questions. I'm saying from a coach's perspective.
Yeah.
You ask leading questions. Maybe you're not overt with what you're trying to get to know and understand, but coaches do some digging. They do a lot of digging.
What? Obviously, not everyone can win a state championship, right? Because there's only 50 of them to go around. I don't know
Right.
if you know the math of how that works. 50 states, no. Class, whatever. I'm joking here. Anyway, the bigger point, the bigger question I want to ask is this: obviously, you're not going to necessarily ding a kid for not winning a state championship.
No,
but for those that make the Final Four or make the state championship or win a state championship, what kind of feather does it add to their cap, like of just how, and obviously it depends on the way in which they're leading a team there and those kind of things, but what kind of things do you learn positively from those that do advance that far?
Those kind of kids usually are better chemistry wise. They're better, they're more locked in, obviously they're more mature, more focused. And to your point, so are the Final Four teams in the state. You know what I mean? Like you could go down and are you crying on the court when you lose? You know what I'm saying? Like
Adam Morrison.
Like, I'm taking a social media break. I would love that. I mean, I know coaches will, but me too. Like I like a kid who's really dedicated to winning. It ain't all about dropping 30, like drop 20, but cry when you lose off the court. That tells me a lot. That tells me you're not going to be denied next year. That tells me you circled that. Who was it? I think it was Zion kept that tweet up about I'm gonna shock the world or something like that. But it was based on something that it was based in adversity. I talked to him about this. I can't remember what it was. But he used that as motivation. Like, what do you pull from? It speaks to all that stuff. So the little nuances speak volumes. They're deafening. For me, and I know that's the same for coaches.
Man, such interesting stuff there, and obviously then we will start to transition into the AAU season. We'll have much more to talk about this summer as we get into that. Certainly, great stuff, great insight, Jason. There, just how we can start to reckon with what we're seeing as we look at the high school ranks. Well, folks, make sure you check out all of Jason's great work. You can follow him on Twitter at JasonNC Jordan. You can follow the show at Locked On Heels. You can follow me at Isaac Shade. You can also email the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Lots of great emails been coming in. Would love your recommendations for this week's Heel of the Week and Heel of the Week. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, smash the like button, leave comments. We are closing in on that 5,000 mark on YouTube subscriptions. Thank you for being part of that. But if you haven't subscribed yet, go do it right now. It would be very helpful for us. For your next listen, check out our brand new podcast on the Locked On Network, Locked On College Basketball. Myself and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court throughout the college basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and anywhere else you get podcasts. Folks, thanks so much for spending part of your Tuesday hanging out with me and Jason, talking some Carolina basketball recruiting. On tomorrow's show, Coach Pat Kilby and I will get you ready for this matchup at Notre Dame on Wednesday night. Make sure you check that out. And remember, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace.